doing so-so. I'm tired. I think we're all tired. I think with the daylight savings and then just lack of sleep, all that kind of stuff, just makes me want to go. You know what I'm talking about. And don't pretend like you don't. It's been good. I hope everybody had a good spring break or whatever you had. But there's a lot of things happening in the world. Is it our responsibility to know about all of them? I don't think so. But if we can know about a little bit, I think that's kind of cool. So the first thing I want to talk about is at Stanford, a very prestigious school. Not an Ivy League school, but, right there on the cusp of what is deemed, an important school. At their law school, they brought in a judge in the appellate court, so very high up. Not the Supreme Court, but still super high up. He had to go through the Senate and everything like that to be able to get his spot. They invited him to speak, and this was the Federalist Society, which is very much of a conservative group. And they asked this judge to come and speak, and then he gets heckled by a bunch of students that don't believe the way he believes. So it's very rude, very disrespectful to speak that way to a judge. And they're just saying that he is scaring them, frightening them, making them feel defenseless, that he's a racist. And all he's doing is just trying to speak on the law. So let's listen to a little bit of what the interaction was like.
You've invited me to speak here, and I'm being heckled nonstop. And I'm just asking for an administrator to sign the
That's an
It isn't a setup. But for many people in this law school who work here, who study here, and who live here, your advocacy, your opinions from the bench land as absolute disenfranchisement of their rights and does land. If you do choose to stay here, I do think we should give space to hear what Judge Duncan has to say. And I hope that also you will take question and answer and comment section to say what you need to say. I want to ask that half the folks walk out and protest, and the rest of us, let's tone down the heckling slightly so we can get to...
Let's tone it down slightly. But basically he asked for an administrator because he's being heckled. There's a guy with a sign that says very inappropriate things. They're saying that he's against LGBTQ rights and all the rest. And so he asked for an administrator, but it's not the administrator that's really going to be helpful in his situation. She's a diversity, equity, inclusion kind of employee, which a lot of these universities have that now. They're wasting a lot of money, in my opinion, because there's plenty of classes that talk about all that, but it's to give safe spaces and blah, blah, blah. But she comes and then she's basically just like, you have a lot you can learn from the students. Like, okay. How are their law careers going? Oh, they're still students at law school? Have they even passed the bar? No, they haven't. Very interesting. So this is completely inappropriate. But then, The View is discussing this, and Whoopi Goldberg is basically saying that because the Republicans were so rude whenever President Biden was giving his State of the Union address and they were heckling him, this is the reason that this has happened now. Okay. Yeah, because these students are really following what Republicans do, and they want to emulate them in whatever way possible. And sure, I guess if we're going to just do this from here on out, whenever someone's invited to speak, let's just heckle. I dabble in a little bit of comedy, especially watching it, and the worst thing is a heckler. You don't want a heckler. You don't want someone interrupting what you're speaking about. It's annoying, and it's rude, and it's unnecessary, and you don't want people doing it to you, so don't do it to them. It's a very simple rule. So, especially to someone that has already made it in their career, how about law students? You sit down and listen to someone who's at the place you'd like to be one day. You maybe could learn a couple things, even if you don't agree with them 100%. Like, in the past, people have asked me, what would you do if and they use whatever example, AOC or Biden, or at the time whenever Obama was president. Would you take a picture with Obama? Would you listen to Obama in a speech, or Bernie Sanders? Yes, I would. I would listen to them speak. I would take a picture with them. Because at the end of the day, there is still something I can learn from them. And yes, I could always have a photo with them. It doesn't do any harm to listen to somebody. And that's the thing. If you are so afraid that if somebody listens to somebody else, you think we're that quick to change? I listened to one speech that somebody gave and I immediately changed all my views. I'm not the same anymore. Just one speech of theirs and I'm a different person. Man, I wish we were that quick to change, but we're not. We're pretty solidified in what we believe. Even young people, not one speech is going to do it. Very short-sighted, very silly. And I feel bad for this judge that he was so disrespected. And I hope that he continues to be able to give speeches wherever he goes. And yeah, I feel bad for the Federalist Society. Makes them look bad. Well, if the Federalist Society invites you, you're probably going to be heckled out of control. Doesn't make me happy. Okay, this is, there's still a lot that we don't know about this, but Gwyneth Paltrow, about 7 years ago, 2016, she was skiing in Utah, and she crashed into a man, an older man, and he had broken ribs. It was a major accident, and she saw him and ran away. And there were some friends with her, and they were just like, oh, wow. And he's suing so many years later for $300,000. There's a limit on how much he could sue her for. But she is very, very wealthy, so this is not a lot of money for her. But yeah, she's fighting. She's fighting. And so, let's listen to this.
You win this case?
Steve Owens for Ms. Paltrow, who is present.
A stoic Gwyneth took her spot inside a Park City, Utah court to face off with this man, 76-year-old Terry Sanderson, who alleges in 2016 her out-of-control skiing caused a hit-and-run collision, leaving him with, quote, brain injury, 4 broken ribs, and other serious injuries. Sanderson is seeking more than $300,000 in damages. Paltrow denies she was negligent and is countersuing for $1, claiming he hit her with a full body blow.
This is a classic he said, she said case. So it'll be sort of interesting to see who's going to be the most believable plaintiff or defendant here. I do expect Gwyneth Paltrow to testify.
During the 2-week trial, Gwyneth's lawyer will also call husband Brad Falchuk and her 2 kids, Apple and Moses, as witnesses.
Apple's like, what took you so long? And she said, some just ran into me.
But why put her family through the hassle of a trial? With an estimated net worth of $200 million, settling for $300,000 wouldn't necessarily cause financial hardship.
It almost feels like, as a matter of principle, and I'm not going to pay you out because it wasn't my fault. It sort of encourages the practice of bringing frivolous lawsuits.
Back in
So yeah, weird story. And yeah, I didn't know about this. It's just now coming out. Yeah, of course, I do wonder the timeline. These things always take months, years to come to fruition. So that is a thing. Who knows if there was... Well, yeah, there was brain injury, so that might have also slowed things down. Crazy situation. But then you also wonder, why did she run? Why was there a need to run if you hit somebody with skis? And then skiing is also very dangerous. I know several people, they've skied and then they... get into accidents and they're never the same, or they can't walk, or they can't run like they used to. It's terrible. Skiing is really a rich person's sport, and I think it's completely unnecessary. Think about how you stop on skis, how you slow down or stop, what that does to your knees. is to basically move to the side, like jut your legs to the side and kind of crunch them up. Doing that over and over and over again for what? Just so you could put it on social media and show that you're wealthy? Who cares? Do something else. Go on the beach. At least you're safer there. There's anything else you could do. There's too many people I know that have had bad things happen to them with skiing, to where, I'm sorry, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. Even snowboarding is pretty similar. But yes, people are very into skiing. So yeah, I understand when celebrities are trying to fight, because I doubt that she's really that hung up on $300,000. But yeah, it could give people liberty to start suing her out of control. But at the same time, if you did something wrong, you need to pay up for it. And if what that man is saying is true, that is significant damage. He had a lot of medical bills. We all know how expensive that can be. You know what I'm talking about. Like, we don't need you, doctor. You cost too much. All right. Okay, so this was an interesting headline. So, Utah becomes first state to require parental consent for minors to use social media. We use social media. Social media came on the scene. I remember whenever Instagram came up, and what was it? Whenever I joined, it was about 2012, and you share photos and everything else. And yeah, definitely, I think that can have a mental toll. It can affect who you are. It can change who you are. I'm a little bit more of the persuasion that you are the type of person you are. Like, if you were going to abuse social media, you were going to abuse social media. I don't really get on social media too much, and I use it more to look at funny videos and things like that, or maybe post a couple videos myself. But the classic, I'm so lost in this video and looking at all these beautiful people, and I feel that I am so incredibly ugly, and now I want to hurt myself. I don't think that's every type of person. And if that is happening to you, that probably shows that you have deeper issues, which is something that needs to be dealt with. And if it wasn't going to be social media, maybe you were going to have issues with something else. That's more my opinion. But as a whole, do I think that everybody should be using social media? Is it a good thing to use social media? It's not the best. I don't think it's the best. I don't think everybody needs it. I think a lot of people should be off of it. But at the same time, social media can be pretty necessary. Like, if you think about news commentators or musicians or comedians or athletes, they can really create a following by having social media. And if we have social media being something that is only allowed to be used if parents allow it, that's pretty much putting it in the same kind of a zone of alcohol and guns, where, well, that's a little different. That isn't with parental authority. That's basically once you're an adult. But if it's parental consent, I guess this is really pushing parents to only allow adults to use social media. So it's tough. It's tough. Then you hear these terrible situations where, like, these creepy adults are DMing kids and they're trying to do sexual things with these kids. It's crazy. So crazy. I remember there was a video like a long time ago, this show, and it was where these, this like girl, probably like 13 or 10 or something, she was DMing this like older guy, and it was like a planned thing for the show. And he was like, let's meet up, whatever. And this little girl was able to find a way to go out and meet up. And then there was a camera crew, and then the dad was there, and he was just like, what are you doing? Why are you meeting up with this guy? Blah, blah, blah. And she's like cries. She's like, Daddy, I didn't know. And yeah, it shows you that unfiltered, not monitored access to social media can be a dangerous thing. So yeah, the Utah governor, Spencer Cox, on Thursday signed 2 bills into law setting limits on social media use for minors, including requiring parental consent, making it the first U.S. state to do so. And this is what he said on Twitter. He is a Republican. We're no longer willing to let social media companies continue to harm the mental health of our youth. So yeah, this is one of the new laws. It was a Senate Bill 152, also called the Utah Social Media Regulation Act. And it requires social media companies to verify that users are at least 18 years old, to open an account on like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, and that minors will have to have permission to open an account, which I wonder how that's really going to come into play. Can a kid just lie? Because I've seen that before where you have to like put your age. You could just put like something older, unless you somehow had to give like your actual ID or something along those lines. I don't know. Who knows? That's what they have to figure out, not me. Are they paying me to figure this out? Because I haven't seen the money if they are. And I'm not all about the money, but sure is nice to have it. All right. So, this will be interesting. And I wonder if this will spread to other states. I do wonder. Yeah, you look at social media also, a growing trend has been these filters, where it's these kind of beauty filters, and before, what would happen is you could put your hand in front of the filter in your face, and then it would kind of distort the filter because it'd like put the filter on your hand and stuff. And then the filter started getting so good that it wouldn't do that anymore. So you could put your hand in front of your face and it would still keep the filter perfect on your face. So it's getting kind of scary. It's like, what's going on? I'll tell you what's going on. I already did tell you what's going on. So things are happening. Things are happening. Yeah. Okay, so let's see what else. This was a weird one. Candace Owens. I don't know if you guys watch her. I do. I really enjoy watching Candace Owens. I watch her as often as I have time for. And she was talking about how there was this ad for Kim Kardashian's kind of underwear and bra, just undergarment line. And it's called Skins. And it showed, this lady in a wheelchair. And she was just like, what? Why is this necessary? And this really offended a lot of people, her commentary on this. And, one argument to defend the commercial is that it basically, the underwear figured out a way to make it easier to put it on for people in wheelchairs. Because if you can imagine, it's probably difficult to put on undergarments whenever you are not able to get up. So it's showing that. But basically Candace, she was just like, okay, I understand that. But at the same time, not everything is for everybody, and you don't have to represent every single subgroup of people. There is a point where it gets kind of stupid, this whole identity stuff. So a celebrity celebrities have no issue trying to go after Candace Owens. It is one of their favorite pastimes. I understand. And it was Christina Applegate, which nobody talks about her anymore. Although I think she has some recent health issues, so I think that's brought her back into the news. And so yeah, she was slamming Candace Owens. So let's play the clip.
Christina Applegate not holding back.
I can't even begin to tell you.
The actress, who's been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, is slamming Candace Owens' controversial opinion over an ad campaign targeting those with limited mobility. Christina called out the conservative commentator on Twitter, quote, "Woke to see the most horrifying thing. This Candace person making comments about companies who see we need help. It's gross." The comments in question? From this clip of Candace's Daily Wire Talk series that's been making its rounds on the internet.
Really? That's all I'm going to say is really. I don't really understand how far we're going to take this inclusivity thing. I really don't get it. I don't know. And if I'm wrong, again, educate me. Today, I just want to be educated in the comments.
In the video, Candace critiques Kim Kardashian's shapewear brand for its adapted clothing ad featuring a model in a wheelchair.
If people that are in wheelchairs were thinking as they were looking around, like, you know what really upsets me? That I've never seen a bra and underwear advertised with a girl in a wheelchair. Why did they do this? I don't know. I don't know why this needed to be done. I'm just getting tired of this all inclusivity thing. It seems ridiculous. Look, I assumed that people that were in wheelchairs also have to buy bras, they have to buy underwear. It's just something that I just assumed that was a thing. I didn't know that we needed to see that in our face.
Yeah, Christina didn't take too kindly to those words, and when it comes to the rights of the disabled, she's not afraid to speak her mind. In a follow-up tweet, Christina directly addresses Candace. Quote, "Do you know when you have seen pictures of me how hard it was to get my clothes on? A team has to help me. So I'm excited for accessibility clothing for me and my community. Hope you wait." As for Candace,
by the way, I think people in wheelchairs will back me up on this. I think they're on my side. I think they think this is stupid. Let's all just agree today on Tuesday to stop being stupid.
And in an attempt to show more compassion for Candace, Christina admits there's no rage, but if Candace was open to speaking with her on the subject, she will not come with anger, but with love.
Just talking about it.
So yeah, that's one thing I love about Candace Owens. She, because we need this. With free speech, we need this. She will talk about anything, and she does not care how angry people get. She will say whatever she wants. She, recently with Don Lemon on CNN's morning show, he was talking about Nikki Haley getting into the presidential race. I think she's 51 or something, and he was saying that she was past her prime. And this offended a lot of people and conservatives. A lot of liberals didn't really care because it's Don Lemon and he's one of their own, so they're not going to say anything. And she basically did a video saying, am I really going to have to defend Don Lemon? She was like, what happened to us conservatives? We're supposed to not be offended so easily. And here we are, just getting so offended. She's like, who cares what Don Lemon has to say? She's like, yeah, like, okay, he said that. Get over it. She was like, we don't need to be so triggered and like snowflakes. And I understand her point. Definitely, I think that him saying that is not characteristic with what he pretends to believe. He's more we need to be like so caring for women and blah, blah, blah. And he speaks that way. Well, then carry it out. And whenever you are being a hypocrite to your own beliefs, then that should be called out. So I see both sides of it. But yeah, my overall point is Candace Owens has no fear. And it's really nice to have somebody out there like that who really will say whatever she wants. And so if she sees a model in a wheelchair then and thinks that it's just too much of a focus on overrepresentation, then she has every right to believe that. And sure, I think I can see both sides of it as well, that the Skins underwear is making it easier with their new technology to have people put on their underwear even though they're in a wheelchair more easily. I think that is cool. But models in wheelchairs, like, really, how far do we have to go with this? Models for every type of subset of human beings. Is modeling really about representation? I don't think that was really the whole point of modeling. I think modeling was, this is taboo, this is a scary thing to say, about showing the most beautiful image of somebody that there is, to then get people to want to model themselves after the model. I thought that's what modeling was all about. Now it's just like, okay, let's think of the most random thing. A Native American, disabled, trans, shaved head, full mustache. Like, how far do we need this to go? This is the first of this type of person. This is the first of that type of person. And who cares? Who cares? That's not what modeling was intended to be. Okay. Did you guys know that the military is having trouble recruiting people? It's scary. there are recruitment challenges. And basically, Senator Tom Cotton, he is really more the mindset that he thinks that they're being too strict. And I didn't know that. And it's pretty interesting. He believes that we're pushing away too many people in a careless manner. That, like, oh, a little tattoo here, and boom, you're out. When that person really was actually excited about joining the military, and now they can't. Or a little bit of color blindness, and you're out. Well, okay, they're a little colorblind. They can't do anything to help the military now? Like, seriously? Just because of a little bit of this? Or they took some antidepressants in their childhood. Now they're out. There's just no way that they can join the military. Basically, there's too many disqualifiers that are preventing us from having more people in the military. And so it's creating challenges as far as recruitment goes. And here's my question. Do you think these people didn't know that? Like, everything I said was pretty, like, duh. But yet, they don't care. And they were allowing diminishing numbers of people in the military to just be the status quo. That's a little concerning. So let's play a little bit of this clip of Tom Cotton.
There's been some conversation this morning about the Army's 2022 survey. You had received a letter from Representative Waltz and Representative Banks in late February about releasing the data of that survey. I have a PowerPoint slide in front of me. Is that the data that Mr. Banks and Mr. Waltz were seeking?
Senator Cotton, my understanding is that the committees were previously provided a summary of the research, and this slide deck that you're referring to was what we released publicly.
Have you provided the underlying data to the Armed Services Committee either here in the House?
We have not, Senator Cotton. My understanding is that that's subject to additional approvals because it involves privacy considerations regarding the people that were interviewed.
Have you responded to Representative Banks and Representative Waltz's letter?
I do not know what the status is of the response, but I can certainly take that for the record and get you an answer.
Could you please?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How many, or what percentage of young Americans are eligible to serve in the Army? I'm going to ask the other two as well, so you can start looking at your notes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So we know that the eligibility has declined over 10 years, went from 29% in 2013 to 23% in 2023.
23% in 2023 of young people are eligible to join the military. That's crazy. And in 2013, it was 29%. So if there was a huge war or something cataclysmic that happened, we don't have many people to rely on. That's such a small number. So I just don't want to skip over that. That is what I call, in America, crazy.
Mr. Raven?
I'm tracking similar numbers, sir.
Ms. Jones?
Senator, we're also looking at 23%.
I don't think that's a good trend, and I don't think it's a necessary trend either. Sometimes we have witnesses come in front of the committee, oftentimes uniformed witnesses, who cite that data almost as if it's a point of pride about how few young Americans are even eligible to serve because of academic standards or health standards or criminal records or character. I think we have to fish in a much bigger pool if we're going to address the recruiting crisis we face. And I just think it's incumbent upon the services to find ways to expand the eligibility of young Americans to be recruits. I and almost everyone else in this committee could tell you a story about what we had to do to help some outstanding young man or woman overcome some supposedly disqualifying injury or condition. You know, maybe a 14-year-old kid got prescribed, a mind-altering drug for depression when his parents are going through a divorce, and 5 years later, he's had no indication whatsoever. Or kid gets a knee injury, has the knee reconstructed, and continues to play football at a high level in college, yet the Army thinks he's not physically fit to be a soldier. Someone who can't pass a colorblind test, even though they can identify a red, yellow, and green thumbtack, and they promise they're not going to fly an aircraft. They just want to be a straight leg infantry. Like we should find ways to help young men and women be eligible for our services, not try to find ways to keep them out. Do you agree?
I do, Senator.
Yes, sir. And if I may, that is exactly why we've opened up a dialogue with the Department of Education to make sure that we are promoting those standards that feed into military service.
Yes, Senator. I mentioned that we have about 30 lines of effort looking to expand that aperture for areas that don't negatively impact readiness, but allow us to reach a broader population. The tattoos being one example, that was the third highest cause of disqualifications. So we made a minor change to our policy, and we're expecting over 2,500 additional recruits would be eligible.
But I think that, I mean, obviously you can't have people with like gang tattoos or tattoos on their faces, but obviously, if they got a tattoo of a dragon on their back, what does it matter? I know lots of people who did. Or criminal records. If you can't have serious felons, you can't have violent felons, you can't have people prone to that kind of thing. But they're a juvenile delinquent who came from a broken home, who've turned themselves around, have a chance to serve. I think we got to make space for them. Mr. Camarillo, you wanted to respond to that?
Senator, we have a robust waiver process that takes a number of these considerations into account, in addition to a whole person standard that we ultimately, assess every candidate for.
If it's a waiver process, it just takes too long. Again, I think we could all give you stories of having to help a young American in our states get through that waiver process, as opposed to something that's a little more common sense.
I agree, Senator, and that's why we're looking
at policy, not a waiver.
Understood, Senator. I think we're looking at that process to see how we can streamline it to exactly do what you said, is make sure that we're.
I had a drill sergeant who was definitely in the go to war, go to jail bucket, and that was in the 2000s. And he went to war and he turned out to be a pretty good soldier, as opposed to wasting away in a jail for minor drug charges. All those 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds who lied about their age to enlist in World War II, do you think they did the right thing or the wrong thing? Mr. Raven, you're not so you want to put it on the record?
That is my grandfather's story, sir. He may have misrepresented some things to join the Navy and join the Seabees in World War II.
I think those stories are well put still today, because, we love all our recruits who want to raise their hand and take the oath and serve our country in uniform, but the ones who will go the extra mile, who go through the arduous waiver process, who will plead with the doctor at the med board to pass them through the colorblindness test, even though they are kind of colorblind. I think those are the ones that we really want to encourage, and we want to go out and make it easier for those kinds of kids who are super motivated to join, no matter what kind of obstacles the bureaucracy has put up in front of them, to get in without having to resort to going through months of a waiver process.
This was just so well stated. And yeah, once again, it just brings me right back to it. Why was it this way for so long? Why are they so strict? And then the conspiracy theorist in me, although I'm really not a huge conspiracy theorist, plus it is what it is, wonders if that's their overall intent, to make us weak, to make our military weak, by making it so strict that barely anybody can get in. And yeah, you have a waiver process, so you took these antidepressant pills a while back, you have to go through this waiver process, and it takes forever for you to get in. So long, in fact, that you get discouraged and you give up. You're like, forget it. I'm not going to join the military. We need people to join the military. It's pretty important that you join the military. And instead, what they do, instead of trying to fix these initial, blockages of letting people in, they just give incentives of, hey, we'll give you this amount of money if you join, or hey, we'll pay off this for you, or whatever. Well, a lot of people were willing to just get in without all those incentives, but you made it so hard for them. So now the few people that can actually go through all the maze and everything that you've created, now they're going to get all this extra stuff that they weren't even really serious about joining the military in the first place. It's a little shady. And I don't mean that in a good way, because shade is like it's a positive thing. You want some shade whenever it's hot. But whenever I say shady, it's not a good thing. Okay, so in Deuteronomy 5:32, it says, "Therefore you shall be careful to do as the Lord your God has commanded you. You shall not turn aside to the right hand or to the left. You shall walk in all the ways which the Lord your God has commanded you, that you may live, and that it may be well with you, and that you may prolong your days in the land which you shall possess. So, it's good to do as the Lord commands. It's a positive for us. It helps our lives to be prolonged. It helps us to be blessed. It's better. Or we could do the opposite of what God commands. So then what does that mean? Not as much blessing, not as much prolonging of days. It's better to live as God wants us to live. It's better to do as he says. Yeah, a lot of people that don't believe in God, they're starting to say, people, famous people now, they're starting to say, well, I think it's better to live as if God does exist. They don't believe he exists, but it's better to live as if God does exist. Because then that way you're accountable. That way you have kind of rules and regulations for your life, which is interesting because a lot of people say, live however you want. Do whatever you want. You're the Lord of your own life. You're the God of your own life. Don't listen to anybody. But no, it's actually better. It's better to have somebody that lives knowing that when they die, they're going to have to answer to somebody. And that somebody is watching over them at all times. It's better. If you're walking across a dark street and somebody is walking across as well and they look a little threatening, wouldn't you want them to believe in God and be accountable to God? I would. Because then if they don't and they go for immediate quick pleasure, what's to stop them from mugging you, taking your money and running away? Instant gratification, hedonism, human pleasure. It's better. So a lot of times God wants us to do as he says. Not just for him, but for us. Because it's better for us in the long run. Man, oh man. Okay, so have any of you guys been on a cruise before? I think a lot of people go on cruises, and I have a lot of thoughts about cruises. They give you a lot of food. It's all you can eat food. There's a lot of people that work on the ship. If you have motion sickness, imagine trying to work on a ship. That'd be a terrible idea because it'd be constant lurching up and down in the ocean. You'd just be just throwing up everywhere. It'd be terrible. And so it's probably better to work on land if you can. But no, going as far as vacations go, it's actually a very cheap way to vacation. There's deals and packages if you're a constant cruiser, where it's even cheaper than just residing at home. The food is good on cruises, I think. The rooms are very small. They call them cabins. It's amazing. You think of a log cabin, then you think of a cabin on a cruise. They're radically different, but they're both called cabins. So it's interesting. If you want the cheapest room, it's going to just be the same small room, but without a window. Then you upgrade to a window, but the windows aren't even big. They can't afford to be too big. It's not like just windows in a home where it's a huge window. It's got to be a sealed, small, circular window. And then if you go up to a nicer room, maybe it'd be a bigger rectangular window with a little bit more space. But even then, it's not much. The bathroom is tiny. So just imagine a life at sea. How crazy that is. And then it just at the whims of bad weather. It's interesting. It's interesting. But yeah, they have a lot of crew that's from people from the Philippines or things like that. If you haven't been on a cruise, you should go on one just to be able to experience it. And it might tickle your fancy, or you might say, never again. yeah, they usually stop at a port. You get off, you go and kind of tour a place, and then you get back on. They'll leave you if you don't do what they say. And then you have a boarding pass. If you hit a glacier, the sea will split in two. And then you could die. That would be so awkward. But then you fell in love with a guy named Jack, and then you're like floating on a piece of the ship. And then it's just like he's like holding on to you, but at some point like you're just not strong enough and he has to let go. And the water's like so cold. You're like, brr. Shiver me timbers, matey. But yeah. It's interesting. I think there's better ways to live your life. But that's just my opinion. And I don't have a lot of opinions, but I have some. But yeah. How are you guys? What's going on with you guys? Are you like, dang, I'm so busy right now. I need to be less busy. Then start saying no to commitments. Because I think sometimes people say yes to too much, and it's like not a good thing. And you need to start saying no to more things. Because you're saying yes to too much. And it's to please people. And it's the worst whenever you're the person asking the person to commit to something, and you could see that they're like battling. They don't really want to do it, but they're just doing it to please you. That's the worst. That's happened to me quite a few times. Where I'm like, hey, do you want to do this? And I could see the person's battling, and I'm like, ugh, this is uncomfortable. And then you want to be like, hey, you really don't have to do it. And they're like, no, I want to do it. And it's like, okay. And then later they have a psychotic break because they didn't have the cojones to say no to you. Ugh, it's rough. It's rough. Yeah, it's better to have more time on your hands so that you could do kind of impromptu meetings, impromptu things. That's what life is all about. It's exciting. Okay, so something that's kind of interesting as well. Joe Rogan, he opened up a comedy club in Austin, and it's pretty cool. It's called the Comedy Mothership. It has 2 rooms. I think one is called like Fat Man, and then the other room is called Little Boy. So with stand-up comedy, people think like, you go up there and you do jokes. You just do what you do. But it is crazy how different it can be if you're in a small room with just like 20 people versus how you do comedy in like a football arena, versus how you do comedy in just like your generic theater versus how you do comedy in a restaurant, and so on and so on. So like how you do comedy in different spaces, you'll joke differently, you'll do different timing, you may interact with the crowd differently, and so on. And so he has a bigger room, and then he has a smaller room. And you would see, like if you went and you saw the same comedian in both rooms, it would be, and they told the same jokes, it would still be different how they do it. Because the environment is different. Isn't that crazy? It'd be the equivalent of like if you're in the Christian world, if a pastor did a sermon to, like a small group, like a home group of 10 people, versus if he did it at a conference. It's just different how it works. So, but yeah, he has this club, and all these famous comedians are coming, and then they even do these open mics, which if you don't know what an open mic is with comedy, basically people come and anyone can do it. That's the point, open mic. And you're kind of like either trying it out or you're practicing. And so they had a line of over like 200 people wanting to perform at the open mic. And they all write down on a little ticket. Then they draw 16 tickets. And those are the people that get to perform. And you have to wait like for a really long time to get in line. So it's crazy. And then if you're trying to buy tickets to go watch the shows, then it's like sold out. Because you're seeing like really famous comedians. And you're not having to pay like too much money. It's really not that bad. So yeah, he's killing it out there. He fixed it up. He made it look really nice. I'm happy for him, you know. And he never did it for the money. He said, if I break even, I'll be okay. And another element of it too is the employees, the people that serve the drinks there. They don't serve food. They just serve drinks. They are comedians themselves, and so they're up and coming comedians, and they're getting to like listen to these comedians perform. So it's kind of a education, but they're also working and they're able to make money and make a living. Because if you're like a person that's really trying to be a comedian and you're like fully dedicated, you still got to make money somehow. And you know, if you have a gig that pays $200, that's a lot of money for one show, but that's still not going to pay all the bills. You'd have to have that like every night, and good luck getting that whenever no one knows who you are yet. So it's hard to make a living. So Joe Rogan is allowing these people to be able to make a living and work on their comedy. And he really, like, he's not trying to make comedy a scarcity. He wants everybody to be able to enjoy it, and he wants people to be able to grow and get better. He doesn't have a scarcity mindset of like, oh, but if that person's well known, then I'll be less well known and people won't like me, and so on. He's very mature in that way. Doesn't have a lot of like envy. So it's cool. It's really cool. So yeah, it's exciting to see what's happening. Basically, it's almost like, you know, LA, they have Hollywood and everybody goes there to become famous and get into the movies and stuff like that. And then everybody goes to Nashville, Tennessee to become a musician. Well, everyone's going to start going to Austin to become a comedian. So it's just kind of like, it's going to become a hub, and it's already so crowded there, and it's already so expensive to live there. So now it's just going to get crazier and crazier. I'm sure, like, literally right now as I'm speaking, I'm sure that people in New York and Chicago that are interested in comedy are talking about, should I move to Austin? And they're looking, and it's cheaper to live in Austin than where they are right now. And so they're like, there's like no reason why they shouldn't do it. So it's pretty interesting. We'll see what happens there. I'm hoping that at some point it won't be so crowded over there and so crazy over there at the club specifically. I think Austin will always be crazy. And then, of course, we always hope that these people that are coming to Texas are not wanting to vote the way that they voted where they left. You know, the people voting the way they voted in New York. Let's change that up whenever we go to Texas, because Texas is the way it is for a reason, whether you like it or not. And it's just, if you want to New York my Texas, then shame on you. You low-key stink. But yeah. Yeah, and then, okay, last thing. Texas Roadhouse. I'm really starting to have an appreciation for it, because it's got such good bread rolls, such good cinnamon butter, amazing meat, really good sweet potatoes. And it is expensive, but if you know how to do the menu right, I think it could be okay. And even their starters are really good too. So I think it's a underrated place, and it's so good. I don't even know what makes it necessarily like Texas, because it's like, it could be any southern kind of style state, but I like it. And if you haven't been to a Texas Roadhouse, you should go. And then even the mentality of like expensive steaks. I used to be so against that, but I'm starting to like have a little bit more of an openness to it. Like, I don't think you're going to catch me over here like paying $30 for a steak. Like, I probably won't do that, but I can understand, like, it's an expensive piece of meat. It's also like the restaurant had to get that piece of meat and they had to pay a certain amount for it as well. And then it maybe costs a little bit more to prepare it, things along those lines. One thing that people hate about me is that I do my steak well done. And so then whenever I'm there, they're like, cut through the meat and see if you like it. And then it's always pink. And then I'm like, can you cook it some more, please? And then they send it back, and then they cook it again. And then they're like, cut through it again. And then I look, and pretty much no matter what, I just say it's okay, because it's awkward. Really, I'm going to send it back twice. I'm going to be that person. I just don't want to be that person. I'll send it back once, but I won't send it back twice. I do wonder sometimes if they even do anything whenever I send it back, if they actually even like cook it, because usually it seems like it's the same color, but I guess it makes me feel just like slightly better to do that. Well done is healthier, by the way, if you're wondering why I do that. And then also it tastes better. And whenever I see like blood in people's plates, that's gross, okay? I'm not into that. And they get their straw and they're like sucking up all the blood. Ew. Nasty much? So yeah, I'm not into that. I don't like any blood in my plate. And I like the meat to be tough, like me. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Guys, you're the best. You're the best for listening. Make sure you get some sleep, because I think we're all a little sleep deprived here. And we need it, and it's important. But you are awesome. If you have any tasks to get done today, you got this. Sometimes you got to speak it. You got to say, I'm going to do this. Get somebody to hold you accountable. But remember, you look good. You are good. You act good because you sound good. Thank you so much. Goodbye.